I'm Matt, and I'm about to share a story that I never imagined would be my own. My wife, Emily, and I have been married for 14 years. We have two kids, Emma and Jake, who mean the world to us. At least, I thought they meant the world to both of us. Our marriage from the outside seemed perfect. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but we always managed to find our way back to each other. Or so I thought. Emily and I met in college. She was studying psychology, and I was a business major. We clicked immediately, and after dating for a couple of years, we decided to get married. We were young, in love, and believed that nothing could come between us. Emily went on to become a therapist, and I worked my way up in a marketing firm. Life was good, or so it seemed. Over the past few months, I noticed a change in Emily. She was distant, often lost in thought, and seemed more interested in her phone than in our conversations. At first, I chalked it up to stress from her job. Being a therapist can be emotionally draining, and I tried to be supportive. But as time went on, the distance grew. She started working late more often, claiming she had extra sessions or needed to catch up on paperwork. One night, she came home later than usual. I was already in bed, but I heard her come in. She didn't come to our room right away. Instead, she spent some time in the living room. I could hear her talking softly, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. When she finally came to bed, she didn't say much. She just climbed in and turned her back to me. That night, I lay awake, feeling a knot in my stomach. Something was off, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our perfect life was about to unravel. The next morning, I decided to talk to her. Over breakfast, I asked her if everything was okay. She smiled and assured me that everything was fine, just a bit of stress from work. She promised that things would get better soon. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that our marriage was still solid, that we were still the team we always had been. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Over the next few weeks, the signs became harder to ignore. Emily's late nights became more frequent, and her phone was constantly buzzing with messages she was secretive about. One evening, while she was in the shower, I glanced at her phone lying on the kitchen counter. A message popped up from a contact named Dr. Smith. It read, "Looking forward to our session tomorrow. Same time." My heart sank. Dr. Smith was her therapist, and as far as I knew, she didn't have sessions with him outside of her scheduled therapy appointments. I confronted her that night, asking why she was seeing Dr. Smith so often. She brushed it off, saying that she was just trying to deal with some personal issues and that he was helping her through it. I wanted to believe her, but the nagging doubt in my mind wouldn't go away. One Friday evening, Emily announced that she had an out-of-town conference and would be gone for the weekend. She seemed excited, almost too eager to leave. I kissed her goodbye, told her to have a good trip, and watched her drive away. That night, I sat alone in our living room, staring at the empty space where she usually sat. The feeling of unease grew stronger. I couldn't just sit and wait anymore. I needed to know the truth. The next morning, I decided to do something I never thought I would do. I called the hotel where the conference was supposed to be held, asking for Emily. The receptionist informed me that there was no conference scheduled for that weekend. My heart pounded in my chest. I thanked her and hung up, feeling a mix of fear and anger. Where was Emily, and who was she really with? The doubts that had been gnawing at me for months suddenly felt like certainties. I couldn't ignore the signs any longer. I needed to find out what was really going on. The perfect life we had built was starting to crack, and I had to uncover the truth before it shattered completely. With a heavy heart and a mind racing with possibilities, I prepared myself for what I might find. Little did I know, the truth was far more painful than I ever imagined. Emily's so-called conference gnawed at me the entire weekend. I tried to focus on Emma and Jake, taking them to the park, cooking their favorite meals, and doing my best to keep things normal. But inside, I was a wreck. My mind kept returning to that conversation with the hotel receptionist. There was no conference. Emily had lied. Sunday night, I was putting Jake to bed when I heard the front door open. Emily's voice drifted up the stairs, cheerful and carefree. For a moment, I wanted to rush down and demand answers, but I needed to remain calm for the kids. I kissed Jake goodnight, told Emma to finish her homework, and went downstairs to face my wife. Emily was in the kitchen, unpacking groceries. "Hey, honey," she said. looking up with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How was your weekend?" "It was fine," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "How was the conference?" "Oh, the usual. Boring workshops, networking, the works," she said, turning back to her bags. I watched her closely, searching for any sign of guilt or hesitation. She seemed perfectly at ease, but I couldn't let it go. "Did you get to spend any time with Dr. Smith?" Her hands froze for a moment before she continued unpacking. "Yeah, he was there." "Why?" I shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. "Just curious. You talk about him a lot." Emily didn't respond, focusing instead on putting away the groceries. I could feel the distance between us growing, the lies building a wall I couldn't penetrate. That night I barely slept. I lay in bed, my mind racing, trying to piece together the truth. Monday morning came and Emily left for work as usual. I kissed her goodbye, the gesture feeling hollow. As soon as she was out the door, I called in sick to work. I needed to know where she was going. I needed to find out the truth for myself. I followed her car at a safe distance, my heart pounding with each turn. She drove to her office, parked, and went inside. For a moment, I felt foolish. Maybe she really was just going to work. But as I sat there watching the minutes tick by, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. About an hour later, she emerged from the building, looking around as if checking to see if anyone was watching. She got into her car and drove off. I followed her again, my suspicion growing with each passing mile. She didn't head to another office or a meeting place. Instead, she drove to a residential neighborhood, parking in front of a modest house. She glanced around again, then quickly walked up to the door and let herself in. I parked a few houses down, my hands shaking. I sat there for a few minutes, trying to gather my thoughts. What was she doing here? Who lived in this house? Unable to wait any longer, I got out of my car and approached the house. My heart pounded in my chest as I rang the doorbell. There was no answer, but I could hear faint voices inside. I tried the door handle, and to my surprise, it turned. The door opened silently, and I stepped inside, my heart racing. I followed the sound of voices which led me to a bedroom at the end of the hall. The door was slightly ajar, and I pushed it open, my breath catching in my throat at the sight before me. There they were, tangled in the sheets, Emily and Dr. Smith. My world shattered in that instant, a rage I had never known surging through me. Without thinking, I lunged at him, my fists connecting with his face. He barely had time to react before I was on top of him, landing blow after blow. Emily screamed, trying to pull me off him, but I was consumed by fury. Dr. Smith fought back, his hands pushing against me, trying to shield himself. "Matt, stop!" Emily shouted, her voice desperate. "Please stop!" But I couldn't stop. My vision was red with anger, my fists relentless. It wasn't until I felt Emily's hands grabbing my arms, pulling me back with surprising strength, that I finally paused. Dr. Smith lay on the bed, his face bloodied, eyes wide with fear. Emily stood between us, tears streaming down her face. "Matt, please," she begged. "Listen to me." I staggered back, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "How could you?" I shouted. "How could you do this to us?" Emily didn't answer, her sobs the only sound in the room. Dr. Smith groaned, trying to sit up, his face a mess of cuts and bruises. I glared at him, my rage still simmering beneath the surface. "I'm sorry," he muttered, blood dripping from his nose. "I'm so sorry." I couldn't bear to look at either of them. I turned and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind me. The drive home was a blur of tears and rage, my mind reeling from the betrayal. How could she? How could she do this to our family? When I got home, I collapsed on the couch, my body shaking with sobs. The reality of what I had just witnessed hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife, the woman I had loved and trusted for 14 years, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. And now, I had to figure out what to do next. I sat on the couch, my mind a whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and pain. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. The woman I had loved and trusted had shattered our life with one reckless act. The front door opened and I heard Emily's footsteps. She walked in, her face a mess of tears and guilt. "Matt," she began, her voice trembling, "please let me explain." I looked at her, my heart a mixture of rage and sorrow. Explain what, Emily?"
That you've been cheating on me with your therapist? How do you even begin to explain that?
She sank to her knees in front of me, reaching out to touch my hand. I pulled away, disgusted by her touch. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "It was a mistake. A horrible mistake. Please, just let me talk." "Talk?" I snapped, standing up abruptly. "You think talking is going to fix this? You've destroyed everything. Everything we built together. Everything we had. It's all gone because of you." Emily cried harder, her shoulders shaking. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I was lonely. I was confused. I never wanted to hurt you." "Lonely?" I shouted. "You were lonely, so you decided to fuck your therapist? How is that supposed to make anything better?" She looked up at me, her eyes filled with desperation. "It wasn't like that. It started as just talking, but then it got out of hand. I never meant for it to go this far. I love you, Matt. I love our family." "Don't," I said, my voice cold and hard. "Don't you dare say you love me. You don't do this to someone you love." Emily tried to stand, reaching out to me again. "Please, let's just talk about this. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. I'll do whatever it takes." I stepped back, shaking my head. "No, you don't get to fix this. You don't get to decide how this goes. You made your choice, and now you have to live with it." "Matt, please," she begged, her voice breaking. "I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose our family. Let me make this right." I felt a surge of fury. "Make this right? There's no making this right. You broke us, Emily. You broke our family. Now get out. Get out of our house." She looked at me, stunned. "What? No, I can't leave. This is our home. Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care," I said, my voice harsh. "You should have thought about that before you decided to betray me. Pack your things and get out." Emily's face crumpled, and she started crying uncontrollably. "Please, Matt, don't do this. I'm begging you." "I'll do anything." I turned away, unable to look at her anymore. "Just go. I can't stand to look at you right now. Get out of our house." For a moment, she didn't move, her sobs the only sound in the room. Then slowly, she stood up and walked to our bedroom. I heard her moving around, packing her things, her cries echoing through the house. Every sound felt like a knife twisting in my heart, but I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't let her stay. Not after what she'd done. She came back down, a suitcase in hand, her face streaked with tears. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I love you, Matt. I love you so much." I didn't respond. I couldn't. She stood there for a moment longer, hoping for some sign of forgiveness, but there was none. Finally, she turned and walked out the door, closing it softly behind her. As the silence settled in, the weight of what had just happened crushed me. I sank to the floor, my body shaking with sobs. The life I had known, the love I had cherished, was gone. All that remained was a hollow shell, filled with pain and betrayal. How could she have done this to us? How could she have destroyed everything we had? I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The woman I had loved and trusted was gone, replaced by a stranger who had torn my world apart. And now, I had to find a way to pick up the pieces and move forward. Alone. The days following Emily's departure were a blur of raw emotions and relentless pain. Every corner of our house held a memory, a reminder of the life we had built together and the betrayal that had shattered it. I wandered from room to room, each step a battle to keep myself from collapsing under the weight of it all. Emma and Jake sensed the tension, their innocent faces filled with confusion and fear. I tried to be strong for them, masking my anguish with forced smiles and reassuring words. But inside, I was falling apart. The first night alone in our bed was the hardest. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the emptiness beside me like a physical wound. Sleep was elusive, and when it came, it was filled with nightmares of Emily and Dr. Smith, their betrayal replaying over and over in my mind. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding, the reality of my situation crashing down on me anew. I took some time off work, unable to face the world outside. Friends and family reached out, offering their support and condolences, but their words felt hollow. How could anyone truly understand the depth of my pain? I found myself retreating further into solitude, the walls of our house becoming both a sanctuary and a prison. One afternoon, as I sat on the couch staring blankly at the TV, my phone rang. It was my best friend Tom. He had been calling every day, leaving voicemails and texts, but I hadn't been able to bring myself to talk to him. This time, though, something in his message broke through my numbness. "Matt, I know you're hurting, but you can't go through this alone. I'm coming over. We need to talk." True to his word, Tom arrived within the hour. He walked in, took one look at me, and enveloped me in a bear hug. I hadn't realized how much I needed that. The tears I'd been holding back flowed freely, and I clung to him, finally allowing myself to let go of some of the pain. We sat down, and I told him everything. The late nights, the lies, the discovery, and the confrontation. He listened without interruption, his face a mask of concern and anger on my behalf. When I finished, he shook his head. "Man, I can't believe she did this to you. After everything you've been through together, it's just unreal." I nodded, wiping my eyes. "I don't know what to do, Tom. I feel so lost." Tom leaned forward, his expression serious. "You take it one day at a time. You focus on Emma and Jake. They need you now more than ever, and you let people help you. You're not alone in this, Matt. You've got friends, family. We're all here for you." His words offered a glimmer of hope, a reminder that I wasn't completely adrift. We spent the rest of the day talking, reminiscing about better times and making plans for the future. It wasn't a cure for the pain, but it was a start. The next few weeks were a slow, agonizing process of healing. Emily reached out several times, leaving voicemails and sending texts, begging for another chance, pleading to see the kids. I couldn't bring myself to respond. Her betrayal was too fresh, the wounds too deep. I needed space, time to process everything. Emma and Jake asked about their mom constantly. I did my best to explain the situation in terms they could understand, assuring them that their mom still loved them, but that she had made some mistakes. It broke my heart to see their confusion and sadness, but I knew honesty was the only way to help them through this. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. Pictures of happier times, family vacations, birthdays, holidays. Each image was a stab to the heart, a reminder of what we had lost. But as I scrolled, I also found strength in those memories. They were a testament to the life we had built, a life I was determined to protect for Emma and Jake. I decided to see a therapist, someone to help me navigate the turbulent emotions I was drowning in. Dr. Lisa Harding was recommended by a friend, and from our first session, I knew it was the right decision. She listened with empathy, offering insights and coping strategies that began to make a difference. "Matt," she said during one session, "it's important to allow yourself to feel the pain and the anger. Don't bottle it up. But also, give yourself permission to heal. This wasn't your fault, and you have every right to find happiness again." Her words became a mantra, a beacon guiding me through the darkest moments. I started to take small steps toward rebuilding my life. I reconnected with friends, found solace in hobbies I had neglected, and began to focus on my health, both physical and mental. Emily continued to reach out, but I remained firm in my decision to keep my distance. I needed to protect myself, to heal on my terms. I allowed her to see the kids, arranging supervised visits to ensure their safety and emotional well-being. It was hard, but necessary. One day, while driving the kids back from a visit with Emily, Jake asked from the back seat, "Dad, do you still love Mom?" The question caught me off guard, and I struggled to find the right words. "I will always care about your mom because she's your mom. But right now, things are very complicated. We're both trying to figure things out." Emma, ever the perceptive one, added, "It's okay, Dad. We just want you to be happy." Their innocent support was both heartbreaking and uplifting. It reminded me of my purpose, my reason to keep going despite the pain. As the months passed, the raw intensity of my emotions began to fade, replaced by a cautious sense of hope. I knew I had a long way to go, but with each day, I felt a little stronger, a little more capable of facing the future. Emily's betrayal had broken me, but it hadn't destroyed me. With the support of my friends, family, and therapist, I was slowly putting the pieces of my life back together. And while the scars would always remain, I was determined to move forward, for myself and for my kids. In the midst of my healing journey, there was a part of me that craved retribution. The anger and betrayal were like festering wounds, and despite my efforts to move forward, there was a part of me that couldn't let go of the need to make Emily pay for what she'd done. I felt a burning desire to hit back, to hurt her as deeply as she had hurt me. One night, as I was scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon a forum where people shared stories of how they dealt with infidelity. Among the stories of heartbreak and healing, there were also tales of revenge, creative, sometimes cruel ways people had gotten back at their cheating partners. One story in particular caught my attention. A man had posted his ex-wife's information on an escort site, and the satisfaction he described resonated with the vengeful part of me. The idea took hold, and before I could second-guess myself, I started to gather the necessary details. Emily's phone number, a photo, and some basic information. It was disturbingly easy to set up the profile. I uploaded her picture, filled in the details, and posted her contact information. As I hit the submit button, a surge of adrenaline and dark satisfaction coursed through me. I didn't feel guilty. Emily had destroyed our life together, and this felt like a small measure of justice. As I sat back, the sense of power and control was exhilarating. For the first time since discovering her betrayal, I felt like I had the upper hand. Over the next few days, I couldn't help but monitor the profile. It didn't take long for the messages to start rolling in. Men reaching out, eager to meet the woman in the picture. I imagined Emily's shock and confusion as strangers contacted her, and the thought brought a twisted smile to my face. One evening, as I was making dinner for the kids, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Emily. "What the hell is going on, Matt? Why am I getting these disgusting messages?" I stared at the screen, the words blurring as my heart raced. I'd been expecting this, but now that it was happening, the reality was intense. "Maybe it's karma," I replied, my fingers trembling with a mix of fear and satisfaction. Her response was immediate. "Karma? What did you do?" I didn't respond, letting her stew in her confusion and anger. I could almost hear her frantic thoughts, trying to piece together what had happened. The power I felt in that moment was intoxicating. Over the next few days, Emily's calls and messages became more desperate. She begged, threatened, and demanded answers. Each new message was a testament to her growing frustration and helplessness, and I relished every second of it. Tom noticed a change in me during this time. We met up for coffee, and he commented on the difference. "You seem different," he said, eyeing me carefully. "Like you've got some kind of secret." I shrugged, trying to play it off. "Just trying to move on, I guess." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Moving on by making Emily's life hell?" I flinched, surprised at how accurately he'd guessed. "What makes you say that?" He sighed. "I get it, Matt, I do. But revenge isn't going to help you heal. It's just going to keep you stuck in the past." His words hit harder than I wanted to admit. I changed the subject, but his advice lingered in my mind. A few days later, as I was getting the kids ready for bed, Emily showed up at the house. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. She looked defeated, a shadow of the woman she used to be. "Matt, we need to talk," she said, her voice shaking. I sent the kids to their rooms and faced her, arms crossed. "What is it?" She held up her phone, the screen filled with explicit messages. "Why are you doing this? Haven't you hurt me enough?" The hypocrisy of her words almost made me laugh. "Hurt you enough? You're the one who destroyed our family, Emily. This is just a taste of what you put me through." Tears streamed down her face, and she sank onto the couch. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But this is too much. Please, Matt, take it down. I'm begging you." Seeing her so broken should have made me feel victorious, but instead, it left me feeling hollow. I realized then that no amount of revenge would ever heal the pain she'd caused. It was a temporary fix, a way to distract myself from the real work of healing. I sighed, the anger and satisfaction draining out of me. "Fine, I'll take it down. But don't think for a second that I forgive you." She looked up, hope and gratitude mingling in her tear-streaked face. "Thank you. I don't deserve it, but thank you." As I watched her leave, I felt a strange mix of emotions. The revenge had given me a brief sense of control, but it hadn't brought the closure I needed. I knew I had to find a healthier way to move forward for my sake and for the kids. That night, I deleted the profile and blocked Emily's number. I couldn't let her back into my life, not after everything that had happened. The road to healing was still long and uncertain, but at least now I was taking steps in the right direction. The satisfaction of revenge had been fleeting, but the peace I sought would require real effort and time. And for the sake of my own sanity and the future of my children, I was willing to put in that work. The realization that revenge wasn't the answer left me with a clear but difficult path forward. I needed to finalize my decision and take the steps necessary to move on. The only way to truly heal and build a better future for myself and my kids was to end my marriage with Emily. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer, Sarah, a no-nonsense professional who came highly recommended. We sat in her office, surrounded by shelves of legal books and files, and I laid out the entire situation, Emily's affair, the confrontation, and my decision to pursue a divorce. "Matt, you've been through a lot," Sarah said, her voice sympathetic yet firm. "Divorce is never easy, especially when kids are involved. But from what you've told me, it sounds like this is the best course of action for you and your family." I nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. "I just want to make sure Emma and Jake are okay. They're my top priority." Sarah assured me that we would handle everything in a way that prioritized the children's well-being. We discussed custody arrangements, child support, and how to divide our assets. Emily and I had a modest home, some savings and a few investments, but nothing too complicated. The main concern was ensuring a stable environment for the kids. A few days later, I broke the news to Emily. I asked her to meet me at a neutral location, a quiet park where we could talk without the kids overhearing. She arrived looking nervous, her eyes puffy from what I assumed was another sleepless night. "Matt, what's this about?" she asked, her voice wary. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Emily, I've decided to file for divorce. This isn't something I take lightly, but after everything that's happened, I don't see any other way forward." She stared at me, her face a mix of shock and despair. "But can't we try counseling? Can't we work on this? For the kids?" I shook my head. "We tried that before, remember? And look where it got us. I can't trust you, Emily, and without trust, there's no foundation for us to rebuild on." Her shoulders slumped, and she looked away, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know I screwed up. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I love you, Matt. I love our family. Please don't do this." The pain in her voice tugged at my heart, but I knew I had to stand firm. "I love our family too, but this is the only way I can move forward. I need to heal, and so do you. We can still co-parent and be there for Emma and Jake, but as a couple, we're done." Emily sobbed quietly, her hands trembling. "Okay," she whispered. "If that's what you want." "It's what we need," I corrected gently. "For all of us." The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and emotional upheaval. Sarah guided me through the process, ensuring that all the paperwork was in order and that we were prepared for any possible complications. Emily and I agreed to joint custody, with the kids spending equal time with both of us. It was important for them to maintain a strong relationship with both parents, despite the dissolution of our marriage. During this time, I focused on creating a stable and nurturing environment for Emma and Jake. I redecorated the house, making it feel like a fresh start rather than a reminder of what had been lost. The kids adjusted better than I expected, though there were tough moments when they missed having both parents together. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Emma looked at me with her big, curious eyes. "Dad, will you and Mom ever get back together?" The question hit me hard, but I managed to keep my composure. "Sweetheart, your mom and I care about each other and love you very much. But sometimes, people are better off as friends rather than being married. We both want you and Jake to be happy, and we'll always be here for you, even if we're not together." Jake, always the more observant one, nodded slowly. "Does that mean we can still do family stuff sometimes?" I smiled, reaching out to tousle his hair. "Of course, buddy. We'll always be a family. It might look a little different now, but we're still a team." Emily and I made a conscious effort to co-parent effectively. We attended school events together, coordinated schedules, and communicated openly about the kids' needs. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of tension, but we both knew it was essential for Emma and Jake's well-being. The final court hearing for the divorce was a bittersweet day. I dressed in my best suit, trying to project confidence and resolve. Emily looked fragile but composed, her eyes meeting mine briefly before we entered the courtroom. The judge reviewed our agreement, praised our cooperation for the sake of the children, and officially declared our marriage dissolved. As I left the courtroom, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and relief. This chapter of my life was closing, but it also meant a new beginning. That evening, I sat in the living room with a glass of whiskey, reflecting on everything that had led to this moment. The pain, the anger, the brief satisfaction of revenge, all of it had shaped me, but it didn't define me. I had a chance to rebuild, to find happiness again. I received a text from Tom, checking in on me. "How are you holding up, buddy?" I replied honestly. "It's tough, but I'm getting there, one step at a time." Tom responded with a thumbs-up emoji and a promise to catch up over the weekend. His support, along with that of my family and therapist, had been crucial in navigating this turbulent period. As the weeks turned into months, I continued to focus on my own healing and the happiness of my kids. Emily and I found a rhythm in our co-parenting, and while we would never be friends in the true sense, we managed to maintain a civil relationship for the sake of Emma and Jake. One day, as I was dropping the kids off at Emily's, she pulled me aside. "Matt, I just wanted to say thank you for everything, for being a great dad to our kids, and for handling this with more grace than I deserved." I nodded, the anger that had once burned so fiercely now a distant ember. "We all make mistakes, Emily. What's important is how we move forward. Take care of yourself." With that, I left, feeling a sense of closure. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I was ready to embrace whatever the future held, knowing that I had the strength to overcome whatever challenges lay ahead. Life without Emily was a strange new world. The house was quieter, emptier, but it also became a place of healing and new beginnings. I poured myself into being the best father I could be, and slowly, I began to find peace. Emma and Jake adjusted well to the new normal. They spent half the week with me and the other half with Emily. We kept a consistent routine, ensuring they felt secure and loved no matter which house they were in. Our lives were a delicate balance, but we managed it with care and cooperation. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I found myself sitting on the back porch, reflecting on the past few months. The sky was clear, stars twinkling above, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of calm. The anger and betrayal had dulled, replaced by a quiet determination to move forward. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the discovery of Emily's affair, the painful confrontation, the emotional turmoil, and the decision to divorce. It had been a harrowing experience, but it had also been a period of profound personal growth. I had learned so much about myself, about resilience, and about what truly mattered. One of the most important lessons I learned was the power of forgiveness, not for Emily, but for myself. I had been carrying a heavy burden of guilt, questioning my role in the breakdown of our marriage. But through therapy and self-reflection, I realized that while I wasn't perfect, I wasn't to blame for her betrayal. I had done my best, and that was enough. Focusing on self-care became a priority. I returned to hobbies I had long neglected, such as running and photography. Each run cleared my mind, and capturing the beauty of the world through my camera lens reminded me that there was still so much to appreciate and explore. My friends and family continued to be a source of strength. Tom checked in regularly, offering his unwavering support. My parents were always there for me, their love and guidance a comforting presence. Even casual acquaintances reached out, offering words of encouragement that meant more than they knew. Emily and I found a way to coexist peacefully. Our interactions were cordial, focused solely on the kids. We attended their school events and milestones together, presenting a united front for Emma and Jake's sake. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary, and over time, it became less strained. One day, while sorting through some old boxes in the attic, I came across a photo album. It was filled with pictures from the early days of our marriage, happy moments, vacations, and the births of our children. As I flipped through the pages, I felt a pang of nostalgia but also a sense of closure. Those memories were a part of my past, but they didn't define my future. I decided to take a short trip alone, a weekend getaway to a cabin by the lake. It was a chance to reflect and recharge, away from the daily responsibilities and the weight of the past. Sitting by the water, I felt a profound sense of peace. The pain of betrayal still lingered, but it no longer controlled me. I was healing, and I was ready to embrace the next chapter of my life. Returning home, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I focused on being present for my kids, cherishing the moments we spent together. We created new traditions, like Friday movie nights and Sunday hikes, building a life that was rich with love and laughter despite the changes we had faced. One evening, as we were finishing dinner, Emma looked up at me with a thoughtful expression. "Dad, are you happy?" Her question caught me off guard, but I smiled and nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, I am. It took some time, but I'm happy." Jake chimed in. "We're happy too, Dad. We love spending time with you." Their words warmed my heart. Despite everything, we were okay. We had weathered the storm and come out stronger on the other side. In the months that followed, I continued to focus on personal growth and building a fulfilling life for myself and my children. I found joy in the little things, a beautiful sunset, a good book, a heartfelt conversation with a friend. I learned to appreciate the present moment, letting go of the past and the what-ifs. Emily and I settled into a comfortable co-parenting relationship. We communicated openly about the kids' needs and supported each other in ensuring their well-being. There were still difficult days, but they became fewer and further between. We had both moved on, in our own ways, and found a semblance of peace. Looking back, I realized that the journey through betrayal, anger, and healing had changed me. I was no longer the man I had been before Emily's affair. I was stronger, more resilient, and more aware of my own worth. I had learned to set boundaries, to prioritize my own happiness, and to find joy in the simple, everyday moments. One evening, as I sat on the back porch watching the sunset, I felt a sense of contentment. Life had not turned out the way I had planned, but it had led me to a place of growth and self-discovery. I was ready to face whatever the future held, confident in my ability to navigate the challenges and cherish the joys. Emily's betrayal had been a painful chapter, but it was just one part of my story. The pages that lay ahead were blank, waiting to be filled with new experiences, new memories, and new possibilities. And as I looked toward the horizon, I felt a sense of hope and excitement for the future. The journey had been long and arduous, but I had emerged stronger and wiser. I had found peace within myself, and that was the greatest victory of all. With Emma and Jake by my side, I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that I had the strength and resilience to create a life filled with love, happiness, and fulfillment. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I took a deep breath and smiled. This was my life, and I was ready to live it to the fullest.